About those two interstate teams in the grand final.
I bet you all sniggered when you heard this for the first time. But now, with only 4 teams left standing, that prophecy may suddenly come true. Essendon will travel to the SCG to take on Sydney. North Melbourne stays at home and squares up to Brisbane. Should results go accordingly, we will see 2 non-Victorian sides coming to the MCG to battle for the flag. Only 10 years into the national competition, that would be an extraordinary achievement. And having spent so much of the season anchored to the upper reaches of the ladder, is anyone out there prepared to say that the Swans and the Bears can't win this week's preliminary finals?
Yes, the fledgling non-Victorian teams have a genuine chance of reaching the AFL Grand Final. After Brisbane's annihilation of Carlton, and with 2 wins already this year over North, the Bears look to be right in the match at the MCG. And the Swans, well, they're playing at home. So far, that factor alone has been decisive. Thanks for joining us on Football Feedback. I'm Tim Lane. We'll have a look at both semi-finals, the players who made their marks in each game. We'll go into the rooms of all 4 teams post-match for a window on the worlds of the winners and the losers. And on what shapes as another historic night, the futures of 2 clubs, Hawthorn and Melbourne, will be decided as the members meet to vote on the proposed merger. Rob Gaylard and Andrew Marr will be bringing us up to date from both meetings. And Lee Matthews, you endorsed the merger. Getting cold feet?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's a bit like turning off the life support system. I mean, you might think the facts make it necessary, but it's not something you want to do. And I'm almost hoping the vote goes against the merger tonight. Don't know what will happen from tomorrow morning onwards, but, you know, once it gets to the day, it's a really tough situation when you think you're voting to end the sort of brown and gold Guernsey.
Talk a little more about it shortly, but I'll introduce Rowan Connolly firstly from the Sunday Age. Did I see you swinging a red and black jacket late on Saturday afternoon?
Oh, no comment, Tim, no comment. I'm doing it a bit hard, I must say. The celebrations were pretty heavy, but I've been hopping in one of those hyperbaric chambers that everyone jumps in now when they're injured, and I'm starting to come good slowly.
Actually, Peter Dacos' sandwiches are excellent for R&R when you're not feeling the best. Dakes, welcome.
Oh, well, thanks, Tim. Good to be here.
But Tim, what about a Sydney-Brisbane grand final? I mean, I'm no xenophobic, but I really hope that Essendon and North Melbourne win this week, Rowan.
Yeah, well, you know, we all embrace the national competition, don't we, Lee? But
I've been trying to think all week.
Have you been dropping it in conversation?
I've been trying to drop xenophobic in conversation. People are looking very strange.
I tried it at the milk bar, but it's a bit hard in between ordering a loaf of bread and a carton of milk.
So what does it mean again?
No, we're not going over that again.
Being afraid of foreign cultures. That is the, you know, in foreign cities, and therefore I think the Bears and Brisbane,
and
Bears and Collingwood was a foreign culture in your own city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're a little afraid of the Melbourne Hawks. Are you afraid of a Sydney-Brisbane grand final?
Yeah, sincerely, I'll be voting for North Melbourne Essendon this week as a sort of born and bred Victorian.
Kevin Sheedy's got you.
He has got me, that the 2 Victorian clubs get through to the grand final.
Think they will?
Well, I think North Melbourne will. I think it's a 50-50 bet. I mean, so far, every home state has won all the finals. So
13 of the last 14, incidentally, in finals have gone with the home team.
So Essendon have got a big job in Sydney, but I think it's still a 50-50 bet.
And Rowan, just talk the merger briefly. We'll go to Rob Gaylard shortly. He's at Dallas Brooks Hall, but what's your betting on the outcome of the 2 votes?
I'm probably 50-50 again. I must say I'm very worried about these mysterious proxy votes. I mean, you know, some of the things we've heard in the last couple of days, things about directors signing up employees as members of the club to vote yes, that worries me greatly. And I think if both meetings tonight are solidly anti-merger and yet the thing still gets over the line by virtue of the proxy votes, it's almost the worst symbolic feel that Melbourne Hawks could have, and it couldn't get off to a worse start. So I really hope whatever happens, that doesn't happen.
Wonder what sort of mood there'll be at the 2 venues, Camberwell Civic Centre as well as Dallas Brooks.
Aggressive.
You think so?
I think there's, we were listening just before we came on air to some of the feed from the venue, and there was the anti-merger chanting starting already. So there's some very passionate.
Here, Lee?
I'm very happy Footy Feedback's on tonight. I'm happy to be here, and couldn't go to the meeting, had an excuse, and it was a very good one. Happy to use it, I was.
Well, we might head to the Dallas Brooks Hall. Rob Gaylard is reporting from there on the situation at Melbourne's historic night. So, Rob, good evening to you. What can you tell us a little before the meeting is due to start.
Thanks, Tim. Well, as you can see, out the front of the Dallas Brooks Hall at the moment, they anticipate about 5, or they're hoping for about 5,000 people here. And of course, this is Melbourne's end of the world, and at the moment, the Dallas Brooks Hall will only hold 2,000 people. But they're starting to gather. They're still here on the steps. Everywhere you walk here at the moment, a no merger sign has gone up. In fact, come for a little bit of a stroll with me just at the moment. And I think there's one gentleman just to the right of me here at the moment. If he doesn't run away from me, I get the feeling that he might be in the wrong camp. Now, shouldn't you be down at Camberwell?
I should, but I'm here to save the Melbourne Football Club.
The Melbourne Football Club and in Hawthorn scarves. Tell me why. Yeah, this is our camera over here. And we're live, so just make sure you say the right thing.
No, I'm here to save the Melbourne Football Club. They've been around for 138 years, and they've had their 12 flags, and they've got we've got nothing against Melbourne, but we're just here to save the club, you know.
Arthur, so you're not a Hawthorn supporter? Well, I gather it's
I am a Hawthorn supporter.
You are a Hawthorn supporter, but you're here to save the Melbourne Club.
Yeah, I'm here to save the Melbourne Football Club.
You're confusing me a little bit here, because no's the merger. Okay, and the signs everywhere around here at the moment. No is the merger. What sort of response are you getting from the Melbourne people coming through?
Fantastic. I've had about 95% all voting no tonight.
Here already?
Yes. 95% that I've spoken to tonight.
I get the feeling that perhaps the people that aren't dressed in Melbourne colours, okay, are the people that want to back this no
merger. You can tell them, yeah, you can tell by the way they dress.
What's happening at the other end of the world?
I haven't got a clue, basically, but I will be going down probably about another hour or so.
All right, so as you can probably see, Tim, both sides represented here at the moment. I'm going to have a little chat with Brian Dixon just beforehand. I just heard inside that Ian Ridley has asked for the no merger, the Demon Alternative, to speak first, which is a little bit unusual. So the no vote will be the first to speak here at the Dallas Brooks Hall. I'll keep you in, I'll keep you in light. I'm starting to get a little bit vocal here at the moment. I'll keep you in light as the night progresses on. I'll be back to you in about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. Meanwhile, I dare say Andrew Maher's got plenty to talk about down there at Camberwell.
Thank you very much, Rob. It is amazing down here, I can tell you. The numbers are absolutely astronomical. There are about queues of about half a kilometre long out the front. I'm joined by Don Scott. Don, you must be feeling absolutely fantastic about this.
Not really. I mean, I'm not the confident person. I look at negatives and try and test those. So a lot of these people have already put in their proxies, and I don't believe it's a true indication of what's really on.
Is the given the proxy numbers both at Melbourne and here, irrespective of how the vote goes here tonight, do you think it can possibly be a fair indication of the feeling of the Hawthorn people?
No, because I know what's happening with the proxies as far as Hawthorn is concerned. And I know they've been out there soliciting. We've had people ringing in from companies now telling how they've been solicited. They're not even Hawthorn people, and they've put their names to it. They don't care about Hawthorn.
Do you have any understanding or idea as how you guys are going at the moment in terms of the numbers required to get your vote over the line?
Well, at the moment, the proxies are tied. There's about 2,700 each.
Well, given that fact, I mean, we've got about 2,500 to 3,000 people here tonight.
Don't worry about that. I'm not confident until we've got that over the line.
Not at all. So you can't look around here tonight and feel this amazing...
Oh, yeah, I mean, don't get carried away with it. I'm telling you, it's got to be a rational thing. Don't get carried away with emotion. It's got to be rational.
So what message do you hope to get across to these people here tonight who
I want to get a message. I want to get a message to one person. We're going across the studio.
We are, yep.
Hey, Barney, you there?
Scotty, can you hear me?
Hey, Barney.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you, Barney.
Okay.
What are you doing, mate?
I'm working on TV, thank goodness.
You what?
Oh, you mean which way did I vote?
I can't hear him.
No, I can't hear him either.
Yes or no, Barney?
I voted pro-merger.
I know how you voted, but listen, you can still get here 9 o'clock, Barney. I know you like that.
It's working.
Okay, and all it requires, Barney, is you to get in your car and get out here. The vote is open. Your proxy can be superseded. We've already got that. So, Barney, get out here, okay? I know you like that. And in fact, I heard you this morning, and you're our way.
Can he put in a telephone vote, Don?
A telephone? I wish we could get rid of the bloody proxies.
Don, thanks for joining us, and Andrew Maher with him at the Camberwell Civic Centre. It's obviously a very intense occasion there, as it's going to be at the Dallas Brooks Hall. There's going to be a lot of emotion.
In all honesty, I felt a little sick all day because when it comes to this occasion, I sincerely don't believe Hawthorn will be alone in it, in existence in its existing entity beyond a few years' time. But I firmly believe that. But nevertheless, a half of me wants it to go on for another year or two.
It's interesting.
Eventually, I think we'll get back to this stage no matter what. And even if it's a no vote tonight, I do believe it's only the forerunner to what will come in the future.
But what you're saying is that you could go to another club and you could actually compete against your original club, Hawthorn, and want to kick the living daylights out of them on the field.
Yep.
But tonight, really does make you feel uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no winning out of tonight. It's a bit like if the anti-merger goes, the anti-merger vote wins. Well, OK, at least the club is able to fight on. Certainly what Scotty's organised is given that sum of money, which means the club can go on into next year. I mean, before that 800,000 or 900,000 was raised, the club didn't have that option, and the club would have really had to close its doors come October, November. So at the ground, the goalposts, as they say, have changed a little in the last month or 6 weeks.
I think at the very least, so Lee, I mean, even if you're pro-merger, you'd have to acknowledge that the Operation Payback movement has just sort of generated this incredible passion that a lot of us who don't barrack for Hawthorn didn't believe actually existed, you know, and I've just got renewed respect for Hawthorn people out of this, and I think that's been sensational, and it would be such a pity for it to now be lost.
Reality will eventually prevail.
But will that be market forces, or will it be people continuing to push that situation?
Well, a bit of both. I mean, market forces, I know it's something of a contrived competition in a lot of ways, but I don't think the AFL are going to change their policy making to make it easier for the clubs who are struggling in the finances of the way football's going in the 90s and beyond to survive even or flourish.
Lee, just on that, if Hawthorn were allowed to continue for the next 3-4 years, what type of repercussions are they allowed to continue as they are, or do you think there'd be a massive split?
I think all that's guaranteed is that Hawthorn will continue into next year. Nothing's guaranteed beyond that.
It's interesting to note that in the last 5 encounters between Melbourne and Hawthorn on the MCG, the average crowd has been 56,000. I would think that administrations of football competitions around the world would be fighting to preserve two teams that when they played at a good venue regularly drew that sort of a crowd. I suppose it speaks volumes for the phenomenon that is the thriving Australian Football League. And the preliminary finals are coming up this weekend, so let's concentrate for a few minutes on football matters, and a couple of the teams are going to be waiting anxiously on the outcome of recuperation processes that players are undergoing at the moment. Mark McCurry of Essendon we might have a look at firstly, and he was on the boundary line in a dressing gown by quarter time, and this is how it happened. An isolated shot, Fraser Gehrig coming down on top of him, and they say it's an Essendon calf, Rowan, which means it can be anywhere between the head and the foot.
No, it's flu, isn't it? But look, I think I've heard 3 different versions of this injury now. We've got, I've heard chest, I've heard hip, and I've heard ribs, and I tend to suspect the latter, actually. If you just have a look now, he clutches around his kidney region or a bit higher with his left hand. See there? Now, I think that's a bit ominous looking, and certainly the vibes I was getting in the rooms was that he was pretty doubtful for this week.
Should we consult Dr. Dacos or Dr. Matthews on this?
We actually saw, strangely enough, last week, didn't we, Gary O'Donnell grab his back almost in a sort of clutching motion at one stage, and we thought, oh, what's he done? But he came up this week, of course, but that does look like a concussion-type impact injury.
It's a rib section. I'd go for muscle type thing, because he's been landed on it, so it seems, on the the left side, but it's the opposite side he's clutching. So
could be
maybe
I think just
the oblique.
Oblique muscle.
Do you think so?
I read that once in my very bad fast bowling.
Really, I mean, it happened early in the game, and he was off for the entire game. One would think it'd have to be a gigantic question mark for this week.
Gary O'Donnell, we saw last week, as you mentioned, go down clutching his back, and I think Mark Harvey said it was his thigh, didn't he? And well, he came up, so you never know. Now, Jason Ackermanis has done a hamstring, and it looks as though he's in a spot of bother too, and did it under circumstances that should have been happy that they weren't.
Well, the interesting one here is that I was just talking to Peter Blucher today from the Bears, and he apparently tried to play on for about 5 minutes after this, so you've got to ask the question, you know, did he aggravate it a bit more, and could that make a little bit more difference?
Well, actually what happens, I mean, a very slightly strained hamstring just feels like a little cramp, and you're running along and you feel this little cramp and you think, uh-oh, what was that, you know? And sometimes you've got to go on, and then, you know, once you start to stretch out, you realise you've just given it that little ping. And a lot of players who've never had hamstrings say, I don't know what one feels like.
Exactly.
But the feeling, isn't it, Dave? It's just like a little cramp in the muscle.
I'm the first one. I'm actually, I've never had one, so I don't think I moved quick enough to actually get one. So.
You were lucky.
Rowan, I was hearing yesterday, extremely unlikely. Is that the latest news?
He's already been ruled out for this week, and a chance if they get in the grand final, probably no better than that.
Lee, what is, sorry, Jim, just the recovery period of that? I thought it was 21 days for a hamstring.
Depends. I mean, a lot of players, well, occasionally they'll only miss 1 week and come back and get through, but I don't know, my layman's doctor's thing is that if you don't miss 2 games, you're struggling to actually get through.
Dave, you'd remember Peter Moore trying to come back from a hammy in the 1981, or was it a thigh? It was the 1981 grand final, but he ended up actually being a bit of a liability on the day, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I think as it turned out, it was the biggest day of football, and you probably would go into a game like that with a risk.
You find that if there only a little sort of strain, which is only a minor tear, of course, as long as you don't run more than 90-95%, you go okay. It's when you have to find that extra yard, that's what really puts the pressure on them.
Don't underestimate Scott Howell's role in winning Carlton that 1981 premiership. Now, this is the really unfortunate one for Brisbane. Their star, the Brownlow medal favourite Michael Voss, and he'd be battling to be right for this week, surely.
Now, is it the inside of his ankle? And I think I asked you about, Lee, I don't know whether the outside or the inside's the worst.
The medical people always say the inside ligament is more severe than a tweak to the outside ligament. Maybe they just took him off. I mean, he's obviously in quite a bit of discomfort. It doesn't look like he's just been taken off as a stretch, as a pure precautionary thing. But sometimes you can sort of hurt an ankle and play the following week. If it doesn't swell, there's some possibility that he'll come up. But really, you'd have to know exactly what he's done to it, which we don't.
They've been really giving this hyperbaric chamber a nudge down in Sydney. They had another 2 sessions today. They get another one tomorrow morning before they go back to Sydney. And look, at this stage, they reckon Voss and Matthew Clark, who has an Achilles problem, probably 50-50.
It's an interesting one. Fraser Brown, of course, did the hyperbaric treatment in between the preliminary and the grand final last year, but there was no tomorrow, and so he played the grand final, whereas the Bears, if they make it through this week, would desperately want to have Voss right and not risk his ankle in the preliminary final if there is the danger that by playing a game he could further aggravate it. Anyway, enough of the injuries. We'll be talking about the upside for the Bombers on Saturday after the break with their star big man, 5 goals in the second half, Stephen Alessio, coming up in Football Feedback.
On Sports AFL, there is no off-season.
We've got so much happening, we'll go straight from the end of season to pre-season.
We'll have club captains, coaches and administrators analyse their season and talk about future plans.
We'll cover the draft, player movements, club best and fairest, merger matters, and we'll interview everyone who's anyone in the AFL.
Oh, what a fly!
Oh, look at that,
What a remark to the day!
All this and much more on Sports AFL during the off-season.
Hang on, I thought he said there wasn't an off-season.
Sports AFL, your all-year-round footy channel.
You're right. The way to do it is take the body out and the head to the fall. You gotta whip. You gotta dip.
Too much sport is barely enough, and to bring you the very best of world sport, sometimes Optus Vision has to reschedule events at short notice. To keep up to date with what's on, simply check the sports menu, available 24 hours on Channel 20.
James Hird dominated at the G with goals like this.
Under pressure from Denham. Hird, has he done it? He has!
At the other end of the ground, Mitchell White, one-handed and the easiest of goals.
There, one out. Mitchell White, the glove and goal.
Bombers big man Steve Alessio shoots blind, and what a great snap.
Good kick, he's got
Another big man for the Bombers, Dustin Fletcher, gets into the act.
Yes, he's going to be paid. Over the
shoulders at the goal plane. Here it is, another one.
The Bears, Darryl White, the supreme aerial artist.
Darryl White. Back inside 50. Lynch
And the Bears' picnic, even though there were mistakes, was all too easy.
There's a chance for Lappin. He'll kick a goal. What a start for the Bears in this final term. Bears 23.
Darryl White flew all night, this time in the last quarter.
Lambert started with South Melbourne under-19s, become a great player at Richmond, a champion player of the Bears. And look at White up over the top, the wizard.
Carlton's Koutafidis, not to be outdone.
For Carlton, kicks back to 50. Koutafidis! Sensational mark. Wins the hard ball.
Alistair Lynch on fire in the goal square, this for his sixth.
Tumbles the ball down. Lynch is going to kick it. He's kicked 6.
The best of the best from semi-final weekend of AFL. Well, they had us believing they were representing Victoria's honour. They were the defenders of all things good in football. They were protecting us from an evil empire. I'm not sure all Victorians were on Essendon's side, but the 85,000 at the MCG certainly waved their jackets and scarves with feeling in the end. Stephen Alessio, welcome to Football Feedback. Looked amazing from where we were sitting. How did it look from out on the ground?
Yeah, it was a big sight. You know, we've played only a couple of big games this year, where there's been, I think, against Sydney we had 70, and earlier on in the year I think we had nearly 80,000 for a game. So yeah, it was a good sight, and especially when they started waving their jackets there in the last quarter. Yeah, it was pretty good.
You could never have had such a big crowd so much behind you.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think that's probably the only game that I've played in where the crowd has been that big and been all sort of... It was majority Essendon supporters. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Were they a factor?
I think so, especially in that first quarter when we probably got the jump on West Coast a little bit. You could see probably once we kicked 5 goals and they hadn't scored as yet. Sumic has missed one out in front. Probably, you know, it really did help us along, I think.
And that sort of self-belief that Essendon play well against the Eagles, I mean, that's just such an important factor for your team and probably for the Eagles because they're on the opposite side of that equation.
Yeah, I think they probably wouldn't have enjoyed, like Mick Malthouse, start of the week, was saying we have to come over to Victoria, whereas we should have probably had the game. So there was already probably that negative thought in their mind, and getting off to a good start, probably even, you know, the seed was saying, and we just sort of went on from there.
It seems, Steve, every time Essendon plays West Coast, the same guys seem to play really well, and you're probably right up the top of the heap. You've had some great games against them. What's your secret?
I don't know, I just not too sure actually. Just, I don't know, it's probably you get yourself up for big games, you know, against West Coast. They've been premiers, you know, 2 out of the last 3 or 4 years, whatever it is. So, you know, big games you really want to play well, and I suppose just those blokes probably take pride in playing well.
We've just seen Jimmy Hurd on the screen there, Steve, he's just an exceptional athlete and exceptional footballer, isn't he?
Fantastic. He's just got better and better as the years gone by, and he's just playing fantastic footy.
Yeah. Steve, you looking at the team going into the game, you're picked naturally. Jason Ball's not picked. As he headed down towards you, were you rubbing your hands with glee or a little bit surprised?
I found out just as the teams lined up, we had the national anthem, you know, I was having a look because I thought Downsborough, you know, lined up on me in WA, and Jason Ball was there, so I had a fair idea he'd be lining up on me. But he's a great player, so I knew I was probably in for a hard game.
On that matchup, how would it be if it had been at the other end? I mean, is it easier to play as a tall forward or a tall defender? If you can know what I mean. Now, reversing the roles.
Yeah, personally, I'd probably prefer to play forward at the start, but it does help you if you're not getting much of the ball to be switched up back in the back line and help out. It does help you as well.
I sometimes think the ruckman type forwards, such as yourself and Jason Ball, ruckman size, are much better as forwards than they are as trying to be defenders against a similar sized player.
Probably depends. If it's a similar type player, you can play on him in the back line, but if you're on probably a more mobile and quicker player, then you're in trouble.
The old Svengali. Sheedy's looking pretty good at the end of this week, isn't he? Cranking the crowd up and all of that sort of thing. We're just going to have a look at what looked like a set play. You might tell us a bit about this. I mean, we hear a lot about David Whedon and so on and his influence. So, I mean, this might be his work rather than Sheedy's. But can you recall this where Masidi held the ball for a long, long time and James Hurd was actually instructing everybody to get in there to the drop of the ball? You're going to tell us all about it?
You got fair camera work there. You're probably just trying to make the most of, you know, trying to use the ball as best you can in a situation like this. And we just probably kicked it up and hoped for someone to mark it in that occasion.
The West Coast players seemed a bit aware what was going on, and a couple of their players dropped into the spaces outside that pack of players to prevent you leading into space.
Yeah, well, it's it's a bit of a huddle there, but in that occasion, I think he was just kicking up, hoping for someone to mark it.
Steve, with that also, are you actually trying to mark it, or are you trying to feed off for a goal, pushing guys at ground level?
If the ball's there, I'd try to mark it. There's no worries about that, especially that far in front of goal.
But you only really had one guy going for it. With a clump of players.
As we see this, just see the West Coast players like Matera there. I think there was another player just out of screen here. I think they were aware of what Essendon were trying to set up, and they actually
they're probably treated as out of like a kick-in, where you have a huddle and the team sort of surrounded to stop the lead. So that's probably why Joey in that instance kicked it long.
Would you have needed 3 in that area though? It seems like a bit of a waste of. Players
from the Eagles' point of view.
I
think they made Essendon kick the ball to a pack, and really there's not a lot of marks taken in those big pack situations, is there?
Yeah, probably on that occasion was probably a lower percentage kick, yeah.
Shoots has spoken all year about getting the side to peak at the right time. If you have a look at the actual structure of the side now, it's completely different almost to what was going around at the start of the year. You've got Wallace and Wellman, key defence posts, yourself, Dustin Fletcher kicking goals. Does this structure you've got in place right now feel sort of more solid and like it has more of a, a premiership feel about it than earlier?
Probably the second half of the year we've played better football, especially in the last month. I don't know whether it's because of the structure we have at the moment, but at Essendon we probably really don't have a permanent structure in regards to our back line and forward line. But at the moment it seems to be working pretty well. But it just depends upon your matchups and who you're playing week in, week out. You probably might see Dustin Fletcher line up centre half back or full back on the weekend to stop Tony Lockett.
Has he surprised you up forward? Because he surprised a few of us. I mean, it's been a bit of a wild card, that, and it's really worked for him.
Oh, you see, he's a big, he's 6'5" himself, but he moves. He's cat-like the way he moves, and you see him at training. You know the way he kicks the ball, and you know he's got that potential to kick goals like that. And on the weekend, those goals are typical of what he can do.
Well, apart from getting that huge crowd along, if he did indeed get them, Sheedy has also done well in that he's been talking up double chances and more of them for teams below 1 and 2 on the ladder, and Essendon have profited from a double chance in this final series, having finished in 6th position. He's also talked a lot during the year, usually after defeats, about the fact that this is still a young, inexperienced side. Well, after this great win, he was also talking about his young players as we pick up his post-match media conference.
If you look at their scoreline, I mean, they've got 106 goals out of 4 young players. So Schofield, Donnelly and those sorts of boys, Cousins and so forth. So you add up their goals, so they've pinched 100 goals out of, Dunstall kicks 100, Locker kicks 100, they were getting 100 goals out of their kids. It's a fantastic achievement. I mean, I'd like to get 100 out of mine. But travelling probably in the last 5 weeks, I thought might have been a bit awkward for them. And hopefully, I banked on that anyway. It's a bit lucky for having it away, I don't know.
Do you target the young kids? Did you think that's where they might be going?
Well, I thought he would get shut down there 4 and 5. Yeah, they kicked 5 goals in the first quarter last week. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good effort, I mean,
he got 3.
Cousins got 3, Donnelly 1, and I think Morrison 1. So there was 5. I mean, that's a pretty good tally for kids playing their 17th or 18th game,
Well, he was talking about young players, all right. They just happen to be the other team. Just a quick one on the Eagles, Lee. A good or a bad season for them to finish 5th in the final analysis, but it hasn't been easy.
Oh, I think it's been a sort of reasonable year. 5th's obviously a fair way up the ladder, certainly from the point of view of the future. I think they've changed their side over a bit. A few of their older players retired at the end of last season. They've bobbed up 3 or 4 promising young players. So I think in terms of looking to the future, it has to be a good base to go into future years. But I suppose, when you've won premierships in 92, 94, if you finish 5th, all of a sudden, it's not a terrific year by those standards.
Well, if you had to look at it at the end of April when they were 1-4 or whatever, it's been a fantastic year. I mean, I think really the main problem there is he's not allowed to be seen to say we had a good year, is he? Because they've gone out of the finals in the second week. But I think surely in a private moment he'd acknowledge that they've done really well. I mean, you'd want a bit of money on them for next year. I think they're going to be there.
I don't think you ever acknowledge that when you've just gone out of the finals. I think the day or two after that you might, but not at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, he couldn't drop the public guard, I suppose, could he?
Carlton went back. I mean, prior to winning the grand final in a couple of years ago, last year, they actually dropped back to 8th. Would it have been 8th after blooding?
They lost 2 finals in '94 and lost the
early 90s. Early
92, 91.
But the good thing with West Coast, I think, is the fact that they've found 3 or 4 good new players, and they did that in a period of 3 or 4 weeks, whereas a lot of sides it takes them a year or two to develop those.
Well, you probably played them at their lowest ebb the first time. When you played them the second time, that was a very different team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They look very tense. Did you sense that out on the ground at all, that they sort of just had the fumbles a bit, just really weren't on the ball?
I noticed in the first quarter when we'd kicked a couple of goals, put the pressure on. It's real hot early, and you notice a couple of guys just drop their head a little bit in the back line. Then once you see that, you just go for the jugular.
We'll talk about Essendon again, and we won't talk about young players. We'll talk about old ones like Mark Harvey, who was with us in the studio last week. He's facing up to his 200th game in a pretty happy disposition.
It's my 200th next week, so it's next week, but you know, if in the back of my mind, I don't think anyone else in footy clubs in the history has won 4 premierships, so that's what I'm after, that's my aim.
Travelling pretty well, the old bloke, Steve?
Yeah, Harves, he's good. He's travelling all right. He's good around the club as well with a lot of the young. We sort of don't consider him one of the old blokes there. He just, you know, he comes out with all the young blokes still. So, no, he's good around the club, and yeah, good on him. 200 games. It's it's really good achievement to get to that mark in your career.
When he's missed a hell of a lot of games,
yeah,
a lot of
had,
football.
Broken legs and stuff like that. He's just fantastic around the club.
And we're about to pick up a grab of Chris Danaher after he played in the reserves. Did he cop a bit of flack around the place for that thing that he was wearing on his head?
Yeah, he copped a bit of flack during training, during the week, but I think once he went out in the ground and that, he showed him just exactly how fit he is during the season. He played a very good game in the reserves.
Yes, he wore a boxer's helmet, and let's hear what he had to say after the match in the reserves, the curtain raiser at the MCG.
Yeah, it feels all right now. I got through unscathed, and I've got to run, under my belt, and that'll hopefully hold me in stead for later on. The reserves gone straight into the grand final, so I had to play today to actually keep my sort of hopes alive a little bit. The doctor said, yeah, take a sledgehammer to break it next week, so that's pretty good.
Tim Watson said in our ABC radio box on Saturday, he's the toughest of all of them, even tougher than Terry. He must be greatly respected by Sheedy, not the least.
He's fantastic down there. Terry Danaher and the other Danaher brothers were there earlier, and they said Chris Danaher, the last one to come down, and I think his father just held him up the farm that bit longer because he needed a bit of help up the farm.
I never knew Tony Lockett's nickname was Sledgehammer.
Yeah, to take a sledgehammer to get through Chrissy, he's very tough.
You've got to be tough to be in the media ranks at times, and when Mickey Malthouse's team has been knocked out of the finals race and given a hiding as they were at the MCG, that's when the media have to be tough. Well, it was Lawrence Costin who faced the music and bounced the ball at Mickey Malthouse's post-match media conference.
No excuses, Mick. They were just too good?
Absolutely too good.
Why?
Because they're a very good football side and we're very poor today. So that's the end of the... they're just very good and beat us virtually every facet of the game.
It was hard to work out after last week, though, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, football's played like that, though. In modern footy, you tend to, you can have your big wins and have your big losses. That's the way it works out.
Travelling have anything to do with it?
No, not at all.
MCG?
No, not at all.
How devastated are you, Nick?
Well, I'll go home and think about it, right? I mean, it's interesting you say that. Young David up the back said, what are you feeling at the moment? And there's a heap of things you feel. So you get on with life. The football club's still here, we'll build on it, we'll take the positives out of the year, and we'll look at the negatives, and we'll do something about it if we possibly can through the draft, and through our training and through our other such means.
Did that genuinely shock you today, the way it happened? I mean...
Yep, I'm very embarrassed for the people back home who support the Eagles.
Do you think, was it a case where the other side got off to a flying start and you just sort of...
Well, they kept on getting off the flying start every quarter, so no, we're very poor.
Second quarter, Mick, you had a sniff. It was, 12 scoring shots to 6.
Yeah, but we didn't finish. Paid a penalty for not finishing.
Mick, you called it a rebuilding season. I know you don't make the final to make up the numbers, as you said, but overall, is it a good season, considering where you were?
Not at all, Basil. It's a good season to play young players. It's not a good season the way we finish. So if we judge our year, it's a very poor season.
Mickey Malthouse post-match, post-disaster, he was relatively benign, I'd have thought, Ron.
He's mellowing, Tim, but I think you're being a bit hard on the rest of us. I was brave enough to ask, I think, about the 7th question of that press conference. But best on ground, Lawrence Costin. That was a very hearty effort indeed.
The veteran of the media corps. Let's get back to Essendon, and we might just talk about Gavin Wanganeen, who has had his name in lots of stories about Port Power and so on, Steve, but it looks as though he's just found that extra leg, as it were, late in the season. We're seeing him play as he did in his Brownlow year, and he's such an inspiration, or an inspiring sight when he runs like that.
Yeah, I think in finals time, you know, you find the great players really lift a notch when it comes to these type of games, and he's really lifted his work rate over during the finals now.
Would you back over 60 or 70 metres out of Wanganeen and Long?
I think they have done tests, and I think Wanganeen just.
Is he quicker?
Yeah, I think he is just quicker.
Yeah. Is he going to stay at the club still?
We don't really have much to do with that. That sort of, it's in the media. You don't really take too much notice of it. It doesn't come up around the club, and I think it's probably something he just has to sort out between Essendon himself or Port, as it may be. Who knows?
Would you have expected to have done more ruck work had not Peter Somerville played such a dominant role on Saturday?
Usually you find, you know, myself and Peter, we do swap in the ruck a few times during the game. He's probably the more senior ruckman in the side, whereas I play up forward. So, but he was having such a great game, and I was managing to kick a few goals down forward, so there was no need.
Is it a lot easier for you than rucking in the forward line when you are resting down there, seeing that you're not getting the conventional ruckman?
Yeah, it does help when you're in the forward line. You probably don't come up against, you know, your centre ruckman. You're up against a tall backman who probably hasn't had a lot of experience in boundary throw-ins and how to position his body. And so you can probably take advantage of that a bit.
Well, you did on the weekend, because you did kick a goal
managed to get
one
out there, yeah.
So he played a better game than that? Peter?
Peter, probably this year, it's probably close to one of his best games, yeah. He missed a couple with injury and stuff like that, but he was just fantastic. He was probably about a foot higher than any other ruckman during the day on the day.
Totally dominated, and you got 5, so it all worked out pretty nicely. Just to the point that we came in on, the waving of the jackets and scarves, we're going to have a look at the history of it. On our sister program on Channel 7 last Monday night, Kevin Sheedy almost apologised for starting it, but I think most of us are glad that he did. It's a fantastic tradition, isn't it? And that little look over the shoulder, it has been said that he did look back at Mickey Malthouse to make sure he saw it back in '93.
Oh, right. No, it's fantastic. It was a fantastic sight on the weekend just to see 85,000 people. It was a sea of red and black out in the stand. It was just fantastic, and now every time if we go over there and we lose, I know we know we're going to cop it off the Eagles fans. So it's a good thing, you know. The crowd gets involved with the game, and there's no harm done. So it's fantastic.
What about when you have lost? It's rubbing it in a bit, isn't it? Does it hurt?
Well, I suppose, but yeah, as you saw it probably on the clip that just went, you know, she raised his hand to the crowd in acknowledgement that, you know, that's something. So, you know, you take it in good stride.
When you lose, you put your head down, head for the rooms anyway,
well,
don't you? Don't look up in the stands.
You get off the ground pretty quick because you know it's coming. Yeah.
That was an incredible sight.
It was.
I don't know whether we'll ever see anything like that again, with so many people there and virtually all barracking for one team.
You've got to give Perth people a bit of credit. I think the first time the crowd caught on to it was when you guys played over there and lost a couple of years ago. So I think they actually started that one, but I've got to say much larger numbers this time, and it was fantastic.
Steve, very quickly, because we're about to go to a break, but Sydney this week, do you all feel comfortable about playing on the SCG? Very round, very wide, not so long.
Yeah, well, earlier on the year I didn't actually play against Sydney at the SCG, but we were ahead for most of the game there. They come back in the last quarter and managed to draw the game in the end. So, and we beat them down here, so we're pretty confident going into the game. It's going to be a hard game naturally. They've played fantastic footy all year, so it'll be a hard contest. Hopefully it'll be okay for us.
Good luck. Thanks for joining us tonight.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Essendon's Stephen Alessio with us after their great performance blitzing West Coast in a semi-final at the MCG by 77 points. More football feedback coming up, including crosses to the Camberwell Civic Centre and the Dallas Brooks Hall as those historic meetings about mergers for Hawthorn and Melbourne get underway. Coming up after the break.
I can't think of anything I wouldn't give up for winning a grand final, and that's what it all revolves around.
Oh, I'll be prepared to give up anything, even give up my old Holden, E.H. Holden, I reckon.
I won't rest until St Kilda, win a grand final, and that's my ultimate dream.
This is Finals Football on Sports AFL.
To win a premiership, I'll probably be prepared to give up my virginity, I'd say.
So guys, what's the best movie about caddies?
Caddyshack.
Most dramatic lighting in a movie about caddies?
Caddyshack.
Best movie about caddies starring Ted Knight and Bill Murray?
Caddyshack.
Best choreography in a movie about caddies? Caddyshack. Best costume design?
Caddyshack.
Best sound editing?
Caddyshack.
Best comedic use of a candy bar?
Caddyshack.
Best performance by a gopher?
Caddyshack.
What's the worst movie about caddies?
Oh, Caddyshack, too.
The highest score in one-day cricket?
Easy. Bibby's 189 not out against England.
What about the highest one-day opening partnership?
Swampy and Booney, 212 against India.
Who was the last Australian to get a hat-trick in Test cricket?
Some young upstart who thinks he can bowl a bit of spin.
All right, who's showing over 650 hours of cricket this summer, including all Sheffield Shield and Mercantile Mutual Cup games, Windies and Pakistan Tour games, and the Indian Test? Well, come on, do you know?
Yeah, we know.
Are you looking for trouble? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's get it on!
Fight Night, exclusive to Channel 12. Every week, take your ringside seat for an hour of power in the Palace of Pain.
Mike Tyson, my friends, is back.
Fight Night, every Tuesday, only on Channel 12.
And shortly we'll be talking about the Bear Blitz at the Gabba on Saturday night. But those merger meetings in Camberwell and at the Dallas Brooks Hall are due to be underway by now. Let's go to Melbourne's meeting just outside the city at the Dallas Brooks Hall. Rob Gaylard is there, and I believe he might have with him the leader of the Melbourne anti-merger forces, Brian Dixon. Rob.
Thanks, Tim. Well, Brian Dixon's taken a moment or two out of the meeting here at the Dallas Brooks Hall just to come out and have a chat with us. Brian, you've got a lot of strong support here tonight, and just as we walked out of there, the accolades and the cheers were happening. It's probably your own floor show in there at the moment, but it's going to be a little bit tough for you by the look of things because you're first up.
Well, there's no doubt, Rob, that if you take what our response has been to our telephone polls, it's 2 for 1 against the merger. The numbers here are no doubt against the merger, and I believe that if we get any other vote other than an anti-merger vote, then it has to, the whole process has to be, the question of its validity has to be called into account.
Now, proxy votes closed at 8 o'clock last night. Have you guys got any idea perhaps what that vote might even be?
Well, we know what our proxy votes are, but we don't know what the opposition's proxy votes are, so I think that it might be that the proxy votes are even, Stephen, and I believe that the voting here tonight will swing the issue to no merger.
Been a little bit of mudslinging earlier today, Brian, and a little bit from your camp and a little bit from them. It's just starting to become a little bit of sort of them versus us, a stronger version, as I'm just forgetting the word I'm looking for at the moment, but it's Ian Ridley is now just starting to come out a little bit stronger in his thoughts against you guys. And earlier today we read whereby perhaps that these proxy votes, the setting up of proxy votes, is, well, Bill Guest's name's been mentioned, of sort of getting tickets together and 60 people.
It's quite improper of Bill Guest to have done what he's done, particularly when we met Ian Ridley and Bill Guest about 3 weeks ago, and we asked were there any block votes that had been bought, and Ian Ridley said he wouldn't have a bar of such conduct. He wouldn't want to win on that basis. And here we've got Bill Guest sitting there and not saying a word.
You arrived here tonight thinking that you're going to be second on the podium?
Well, our vote, our position ought to be that the no vote is unable to speak second, and that we ought to be on a level playing field. The Demon Alternative should be up on the podium along with the board, because this is supposed to be a referendum. This is the most important vote that's ever affected the Melbourne Football Club, and we're being treated like second-class citizens.
Well, we'll keep you informed of what's happening throughout the night, gentlemen. Back there, Brian Dixon, as I said, has taken a moment or two from the Dallas Brooks Hall to come out and have a chat with us. I no doubt you'll be going back to Camberwell and have a chat with Andrew Marr. I'll be back with you shortly.
Thanks for that, Rob Gaylard at the Dallas Brooks Hall. Well, back to footy for a few minutes, and the Eagles' 77-point loss at the MCG was the club's worst defeat in Mick Malthouse's reign as coach, which started in 1990, but it was nothing to what happened to Carlton at the Gabba. It was the Blues' 6th heaviest defeat in their 100-year history. It was the 5th largest margin ever in a finals match, and by far Carlton's worst loss ever in a final, exceeding 73 points to Essendon in 1949 in the grand final. Lee, what went wrong to a team that won 33 out of 37 until the middle of this season?
Well, I think they were a very experienced team last year. We all knew that, and I think a few things happened. They got injuries to key players. I mean, very early in the year, Peter Dean got injured. Andrew Mackay was living in Brisbane. So I think really it was the 4 things. A few players probably aged, went over the top a little bit. Other players got injured. A few other players, say the Christos, didn't really find the same form they were in last year. And all of a sudden, the whole self-belief and team confidence gets eroded. The little gaps open up that become giant crevices after a while, and I think that's what's gradually happened in the second half of the season.
It still seems amazing though, doesn't it? I mean, they were 9-2, and admittedly they hadn't played that well at any stage, but I think most of us interpreted that as being a good sign. We thought, gee, they're still winning and they're not playing well.
I'll be interested in Dates' comment on this. I think sometimes when you win a premiership, the self-confidence of the team is there, that the start of the following year, usually the side is playing on that confidence a bit. Dates, can you recall?
I think so. I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think that you do play on a little bit, and you probably then take your foot off the pedal a little bit. But with
how you guys lost
Carlton
your first 6 in 91, and didn't you?
We did, and that's probably why we did lose it. I think you have got that self-confidence, but it's just not enough really to really get you going.
Yeah, you talk about premiership hangovers, and I don't think Carlton had one. I thought when it got to April and May, I thought Carlton were playing okay.
Very well.
And they were a little bit fragmented with injuries, but gradually these little cracks of self-belief and confidence have gradually opened up. And those other factors, a few players lost form. Obviously, Greg Williams wasn't there at all in the end and struggled a bit for, a fair bit of the year.
Isn't the key statistic now, they've got, I think, 8 guys older than 30 years old. I mean, we can probably not get rid of. We can probably dismiss 2 or 3 of them already for next season, but clearly they're going to be making up to a dozen changes on the list, I think.
Yeah. We must talk about the winners because they're absolutely magnificent. For John Northey, when he faced the media post-match, a much more composed man than after the Bears' 1-point win over Essendon the previous week.
Well, it's a bit different from last week, wasn't it? Last week was very, very hard, but this week, I mean, the boys, it was a pretty torrid battle till half-time, I thought, and after half-time we came out and we knew they were wearing pretty thin, they were finding it pretty hard out there, I think, and our boys just continued to play. I thought we played 4 very, very good quarters of football. I must say that we're always well aware of the travel that Carlton have done, and there's no doubt that it takes it out of you, going to Perth. I think they went there twice, and then down to Geelong, and then up here, and maybe now that everybody starts to realise what effect the travel can have on you.
John, when do you start thinking about Carey and McKernan?
I've been thinking about them actually, yes. A big thorn in anybody's side, of course, but maybe after tonight, I'd like to relax tonight and then start thinking about it probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, I dare say. But, they're a very good side, of course. We've been fortunate. We've beaten twice this year, and it's just going to be one hell of a challenge for us again to go down there on the MCG. And as you can see, the boys really love a challenge now. So, one step away we are, and we're just going to give it everything we've got. Our forward structure last week that I believe we played our cards too early, I heard. And then followed up this week with Rog and Lynchy and Lepper again. I mean, they're all just magnificent. And if we can get these 3 blokes firing, and, they've fired for 2 weeks now, another 2 weeks to go, well, gee whiz, we can do anything, I reckon.
John Northey after the Bears' 97-point thumping of Carlton. We'll talk about them in just a moment, but we're going to have a look at some of the scenes at the Camberwell Civic Centre where the Hawks have gathered. It looks as though proceedings aren't quite underway as yet. An anxious wait for the many fans there, and I think there's going to be a fair bit of tension in the air and a certain amount of acrimony before the night is out at the Camberwell Civic Centre. Lee, how good were the Bears?
Well, they were exceptional. I mean, you shouldn't ask me about the Bears. I've underestimated them all year, I think, and they just keep playing well. I mean, the couple of weeks, about 6 weeks ago when they came down and beat North Melbourne at Optus Oval, and they've beaten North twice, so certainly they've got the record against North this year. But on Saturday night, I mean, they were obviously exceptional. Once they dropped Carlton off, they just went on and kicked 26 goals, gigantic win.
Why do you think we find it so hard to accept them as a serious premiership chance? Is it a psychological thing that they've been easy beats for so long? What is it?
I don't think the names hit you. You look at their team and the names don't jump out as you as champion players. Fletcher's plays like a champion player, but maybe we don't accept him as such. Lambert's been exceptional. Clark even, I mean, probably equal of any ruckman in the competition, but he doesn't hit you as a sort of a match winner. But all over the field, they've got a lot of players, I think, contributing a little above that kind of reputation expectation.
I think that's the point. I think that they're so unpredictable, I think, in their goal getting. They'll win the ball in the end, kick a goal from a mark on the ground, they'll run the ball through, and I think so many facets of their game have improved, but their speed is absolutely phenomenal.
And big Roger Merritt still providing a bit of aggression in his last game at the Gabba. He was making his presence felt as he did in his best days with Essendon.
Yes, he's certainly got a presence about him, Roger. Now, the problem is I can't remember the last time Roger's got a kick in Melbourne. It was probably when he was playing for Essendon, I think.
When was the last time he played in Melbourne?
They're back at the MCG this week. But up at Brisbane, he's played some terrific cameo roles. I mean, on and off the ground a little bit. And I think we might see this bit of vision's fantastic. He knows there's contact coming. You put your head down and charge through, and you've got a fair chance of getting a high tackle, which is exactly what he did.
Dean Wallace wasn't coming the other way this week.
I don't think it would have mattered if he did.
Is he there for goals or just his presence? I mean, what's the key to it at the moment? Or is it the matchups? Just the, you know, sort of trying to...
He gives that variation, doesn't he? With Lynch and Merritt and Scott and Lepich, they can sort of revolve them round a bit, and Rogers seems to be only have to spend half the time on the ground, certainly in Brisbane, and he'll kick his 2 or 3 goals most of the time.
Go into the prelim final with him, starting the game, or would you go into a grand final starting the game with him?
This is the biggest problem. In all honesty, I cannot remember the last time Rogers done anything in Melbourne.
What about his screamer, the last act of the final against Carlton on the MCG last year?
He took a soaring mark. What was supposed to be his last game. That was about his 10th last game.
One of his last games. How did he go in that game?
Not
Pete
bad.
Personally.
I'm just trying. He's had more farewells than Nelly Melbourne.
I think really he has very much been a hometown hero. The other thing, Alistair Lynch doesn't seem to travel well with the aftermath of that sort of fatigue syndrome, and he hasn't played that well away from Brisbane. So, I mean, Bears have done okay in Melbourne, but I think there's a couple of factors that are very much against them this week.
At least they being able to rotate, you know, Merritt, Lynch, Lepich, and Darryl White's sort of the wild card, isn't it? It's not unlike Essendon in the options they've got.
Their best footy's been at night, though.
Yeah.
Better results. So you're talking a day game now.
Yep.
That's
North Melbourne with a night specialist too, Doug, so maybe they'll both be disadvantaged
Cancel each other out. Now Carlton, and we go to their coach, David Parkin, and obviously a very sober David Parkin as he made his blunt appraisal of the Blues' crash to doom in '96.
I think the scoreboard, to be truthful, showed the difference between the two sides on the night, which makes Bears' performance extremely good and Carlton's performance in the circumstances very ordinary. Well, we had half a season where I think we were very competitive and holding our ground against a lot of challenges early in the piece, and I was very pleased, A, with the attitude and B, with the performance. But for whatever reason, I think there are, I know excuses, but there are lots of reasons why we became a bit fragile, and we played very inconsistently in the second half, and we've turned in a very, very ordinary finals performance. If you compare the results of all the games so far, Carlton's performance would have to go down as the worst of the 8. And that's a bit sad. I think the team that had as much pride and was still hanging on to the crown from the previous year and a fair bit to work for, I thought we fell away very badly to finish. The teams that have travelled in this final series, every single one's gone under. It hasn't been a winning team. Some got pretty close. You know, Essendon and Hawthorn got pretty close, but they still didn't win. So you might put that down as a part factor, but I didn't feel there was no sense of players using that as some reason why we couldn't perform, and we started well. So I mean, we got out of the blocks okay, and we were with it. And halfway through the second quarter, I thought we were not in control, but certainly very competitive and playing pretty good football.
A disappointed David Parkin. We'll talk more about Carlton shortly, but we're going back to the Dallas Brooks Hall. Rob Gaylard among the crowd on this big night.
well past the start time for the meeting here at Dallas Brooks Hall, and while there may be 2,500 or so people inside, you can probably see just behind me at the moment, they line right out here onto the street in front of the Dallas Brooks Hall, around the corner and then down to Albert Road. And I would envisage there's probably about 3,000 people out here as well too. I think what's happening here too, a lot of the proxy vote people too have just come along to have a listen to see what's being said here tonight. A few of the crowd getting a little bit testy, but I think they're just going to have to be a bit patient. And of course, our good friend Ron Barassi, and you can hear them starting to fire up behind me at the Melbourne at the moment with the cry of no merger. That's been the cry inside all night as well too. The PM edition of the Herald Sun sees Ron Barassi. A last-minute change. The headlines: merger shock. Barassi switches sides as the survey hits AFL. Barassi's had a chance to have a look at the figures, I think, and does believe that the Demon alternatives options should be listened to. So we're in for an interesting night. You can take it back in the studio. It's probably just a little bit quieter, and we'll keep you updated with what's happening here.
Thanks for that, Rob Gaylard, where I'm told the meeting is now officially starting half an hour late, and some of those who can't get in are claiming that the meeting should be called off. Barassa's about-face would have to be one of the more amazing things, because he has been such an unashamed pro-national leaguer, but we'll hear more about that, no doubt, in the ensuing hours. Back to Carlton.
There's nothing to do with the National League, Tim. I mean, Brass is pro-national.
Well, he's a football rationalist, though,
well, yes, he is a football rationalist. Yeah, I spoke to Brass yesterday, and I think his feeling was that quite possibly this merger will be unsuccessful, but he's really had a kind of backflip if all of a sudden in 24 hours he's actually supporting and would personally vote anti-merger.
I mean, the point I was making is he has seen mergers, a reduction of the number of teams in Melbourne, as being absolutely essential to the rationalisation of the National League.
Yeah, that's the point. I suppose it's being pedantic about the National League. He certainly, and well, I think I'm a...
He's not xenophobic. Let's put it that way.
I don't know what he is.
Talk about Carlton briefly, and gee, there wasn't a lot to write home about. Stephen Kernahan and Anthony Koutafidis, about the two words you'd fit in your letter home, I would think.
Well, it almost looks like you go back to the 93 grand final, Kernahan kicked 7 goals and they were killed. I mean, it had that look about it. He was like their only avenue. And it made me feel that the loss of form and injury or whatever of Brad Pearce this year has been a crucial factor for him, really.
Yes, it has. I mean, he was just that exceptional. Like what he only kicked 45 odd goals last year, but it seemed like he was just that foil to Kernahan, and he just took the pressure off that one forward target. Carlton had two players making themselves available when they went forward.
Do we talk now? Do we talk fine lines now with teams and the success of teams through a year? You know, 1-2 injuries. We talked Dean Spalding, and all of a sudden, they've lost really the two key players, and they fell away.
I think it might be that very few Carlton players have had as good a year in 96 as they did in 95, and that goes from Brett Ratton, who was their best and fairest last year. I mean, Bradley, I mean, they've had reasonable years, but nowhere near the quality of last year over the team.
This also begs another interesting question. Is this the definitive argument against any side being able to win back-to-back premierships? I mean, they were supposed to be one of the strongest, most experienced, settled sides of all time. To me, anyway, it seems to indicate in the modern competition you just can't do it.
Yeah, I think Carlton, they were a category of a team who was sort of so experienced it was always going to become old very quickly.
You did say to me as we sat here ready to do this program one night in mid-season, I think Carlton are so far ahead of the rest that it doesn't matter.
Well, they were last year. That's true.
That was this year, though.
Yeah. No, I didn't say that early this year.
Yeah, mid-season?
No, well, no, I did not.
Selective amnesia. We weren't on the air.
They certainly were last year, and they were so much better last year. You knew that they might be 10% worse this year, but they still might be good enough to win it. But I suppose they've dropped back to 20 or 30% worse. Did I say that?
I can top that, Tim. I heard Sam Newman on Thursday night on another football show say that Carlton side on paper was the best side he'd seen all season. So,
but that's true. You still look at the Carlton names as opposed to the guys in the Brisbane Guernseys. You think, yeah, he's a good player, he's a good player.
What about the guys in the North Guernseys and the Essendon Guernseys?
Do we give too much credit to the lesser-known players at Carlton? Because these players, the nucleus are so good that they tend to carry a lot of the...
I always think in football reputations last a couple of years longer than performance.
And on the back-to-back premierships, I think the Bears at the moment are the best chance with their influx of Fitzroy players next year. Even if they don't win it this year, I think they might be the team that is
they
on
won't
the way.
Be back-to-back team. It's a different team. Yeah. Brisbane Lions next year. It's a different club.
Brisbane Lions might win 2 in a row.
That's true.
Let's hear from Stephen Kernahan after the match. This has already been seen on Channel 7 if you were sitting up to the bitter end, and he certainly summed it up very succinctly from a Carlton player's point of view.
Well, I think the most disappointing thing, we worked many years last year to get this club, back where it belonged. We got a premiership, and I think our 2 finals have really, we can't handle it as players. We've really let the club down, the supporters, and to lose 2 finals by 9 and 15 goals it's really a disgrace. And we've got to wear it and we'll cop it, and we deserve that.
Yes, put very bluntly by the Carlton skipper. Now we can go back to the Camberwell Civic Centre. Andrew Marr is at the Hawthorn merger meeting. Andrew.
Tim, yeah, look, it's the crowd here has become positively hostile and angry. A few of my learned colleagues to my left have told me. The meeting's now half an hour away from half an hour late, and I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Coleman and his colleagues are in there refusing to come out. The atmosphere here is absolutely hostile. You can hear it in the background. It's quite amazing. There are probably about 3,000, 3,500 people in the building at the moment, and about 2,000 people outside. So quite amazing scenes here at the Camberwell Civic Centre. Camberwell's not used to this sort of behaviour.
Do you think the meeting will get underway, Andrew?
I'm not sure, Tim. It has to get underway at some stage. There'll be a riot if it doesn't, but I'm not 100% sure. I thought there would have been somebody come out and let us know what's going on by now. We've had nobody come out from behind the closed door and give us any indication as to what's happening. So anybody's guess at this stage.
And Andrew, how many people are outside? I mean, have they fitted? Is that the word? Most of the people inside the Camberwell Civic Centre, or is there many outside?
It's amazingly the expected. The number of people you're supposed to be able to get in here is between 1,600 and 2,000, and I'm being told now that there's like 3,000 people in here at the moment. When I did come in here about an hour ago, there would have been the same number outside as there were inside. So I'm sure maybe 1,000 of those are in, but there's got to be 1,500 or 2,000 still out who have got no hope at all of getting in. So maybe they're taking that into account. Maybe they think that they can't quite get everybody voting tonight. And if that's the case, then who knows how they're going to resolve it.
Can you find many people there who are obviously pro-merger, and if so, are they wearing suits and ties, or how do you tell?
Rowan, there's a couple of suits and ties here, but I must admit there's a few anti-mergers wearing suits and ties here. There have been chants going up all night, all anti-merger, and you look around and you have a look at the people who are sitting there not participating. They're doing so with their heads in their hands, looking quite sheepish. It's one of those nights where I think people who maybe were pro-merger before they got here tonight, if they are still here, are beginning to think that maybe they should have just stuck with the side and the club a little bit longer and given it that year, one more year at least, to prove whether or not it could survive on its own.
Andrew, thanks for that. We might hear from you again before our program is out in just over half an hour's time, but still this business of affecting mergers is proving, I think, far more difficult than anyone in the administration of the game ever quite imagined.
Well, they keep underestimating the power of emotion in footy, and you can call it a cliche and you can call it outdated or whatever you want, but it just keeps getting up, doesn't it? Footscray Fitzroy in '89 kept Fitzroy going for 10 years, and it looks like it's going to bring this undone as well. I mean, they underestimate it at their own peril.
Well, in fact, it's the irrational, inexplicable emotion which makes the game what it is. That's why people go along and barrack for their teams. You can't explain it. It's irrational. Anyway, we'll talk more footy shortly when we come back after the break.
You've never seen football like this before.
Live, the pace, the passion, the explosive power of the NFL. Sport's ultimate armored warriors challenge each other on the fields of pain in search of American football's ultimate prize, the Super Bowl.
Turn it on!
The heat, the fury.
And he's in for the touchdown! Over the top!
Buffalo take on Pittsburgh in NFL Live Tuesday morning at 11, replayed at midnight on ESPN.
Fighting a losing battle with the bulge? Always feeling tired and lethargic? At Sports Australia, we've got the answers. Kiana Flex Appeal, Crunch Fitness, Aerobics Oz Style, Gotta Sweat. Getting fit with Denise Austin. You're guaranteed to feel better, look better, be better, just by regularly taking part in one of these fitness shows. Weekdays on Sports Australia, Channel 12.
Some sports inspire with their grace, precision. Others capture your emotions with their breathtaking beauty. Now for something a little different.
Something with more punch, more muscle, and a lot more fire!
Now that felt good. The ultimate sporting experience with action from Australia and around the world.
Sports Australia on ESPN. Your sport when you want to see it.
Be quiet. Now be quiet. These gentlemen here deserve a little bit more respect than what you are giving them. Now, this is not Hawthorn like. Now please, please, please. Please, can we commence orderly? Can we commence a meeting in orderly fashion, please? Just a little bit of decorum. We all know, we're all upset too. Just as much as you. We're bleeding. Now, can we just keep it? Excuse me, I am talking, and I've always been told not to talk over somebody while they're talking. So, just button. Thank you.
They were live pictures. That is the scene at the Camberwell Civic Centre. The Hawthorn meeting is just getting underway. These were the pictures when the board arrived on the stage, and you'll hear under me the crowd, the anger, the hostility, leaving no doubt about their feelings. And tonight Hawthorn is a club divided, a club that we're told doesn't have the wherewithal to stay on its own feet, and yet obviously a tremendous intensity and power of feeling from a lot of people that it should stand on its own. This is a very difficult and very painful process. That was just a few minutes ago when Brian Coleman and his board, I can see the finance director Graham not there, and Yabby Jeans, of course, an icon at Hawthorn, multiple premiership coach, and he was among the group being booed on the stage. It wouldn't make you feel terribly good, Lee.
Oh, it's shocking. I mean, it's really been very hard for these board members. I mean, everyone in this has got pure motives. I mean, the board are doing what they think is in the best interest of the club. I don't think they're so much pro-merger. They just come to the belief there is no other choice. Now, you know, I'm sure if there was another choice, they'd be only too happy for Hawthorn to continue in its own right. So it has become personal. Unfortunately, when the supporters get up and boo people because they've got a different opinion to themselves, I mean, people have to be prepared to listen to other people's opinion. Finally, the members will be able to vote and the majority will rule.
Lee, could the hostility be also that the club finds itself in the position it's in because of the...
I agree. I think you're right, Dukes. Yeah, no doubt about that. I think all of a sudden the Hawthorn club has sort of done well on the field in the last sort of 20 years, and probably the financial strife's only come up in the last couple. So I think supporters have trouble really comprehending their financial situation.
It asks a question too. I mean, if they had alerted people to how bad the situation was instead of trying to pull the wool over their eyes, which they clearly had done, the Scott Group perhaps could have rallied and got together the wherewithal to so they never need to negotiate a merger. Maybe one of the benefits of this will be that it will change the way clubs are run, and they'll be more outgoing to their membership and their supporters.
We are going to return to the Camberwell Civic Centre live in just a moment, but we will pause again. We're putting two breaks pretty close together, but we will be back, and we'll be going back live to the Camberwell Civic Centre and that Hawthorn meeting after this break.
Have you heard the news? The off-season's been cancelled. No summer break. Just straight from the end of season to pre-season.
On Sports AFL, we aren't taking a break for the off-season. Instead, we'll keep you up to date with footy news, bring you all the club best and fairest, the draft and player movements, plus analysis of how your team went during the year.
There's talk shows, interviews, replays of the best matches. Phew. Give me a finals game anytime.
It's the most watched, the most star-studded football competition in the world.
It's an opening forward, and it's in!
From the traditional home of soccer, the physical power and excitement of the English Premier League.
But what a great run!
Powerhouse powerhouse Arsenal clash with a surprising early pace-setter Sheffield Wednesday. The English Premier League, live Tuesday morning, 4:55, replayed at 9 Tuesday night on ESPN. In a 25-metre pool, if you miss the start, are slow on the turns, you're sunk. Olympic champions Duncan Armstrong and Nicole Stevenson call the New South Wales Short Course Championships, 6:30 Wednesday night on Sports Australia. Every game, every club, every week. You've never seen footy like this before. Ring now 1300 300 800 for Sports AFL.
Oh dear, it's hard to keep a straight face, but someone said to me that they thought Dean Wallace was really trying to protect Mitchell. What?
Oh, sure, yeah. I think I saw a similar smile on his face about 1 a.m. at the Cactus Club last Saturday night. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to be on the other end of that smile.
No.
Oh,
Did you ever smile like that, Lee, on the field?
Never smiled.
Never smiled.
Cold, calculated killer.
Now we're going back to the
At least you
camera.
admit it, Lee. I've heard enough people say it over the years.
At least we're smiling. There aren't too many smiles at the Camberwell Civic Centre. This is Raymond Vida proposing the resolution on behalf of the merger. And now Richard Loveridge, who is the master of ceremonies, if you can call him that, premiership player for Hawthorn, and he's copped his share of heckling too.
I now call on Graham Knott to second the proposed resolution.
I second the proposal to be put to the meeting.
I now call for the first speaker to speak in favour of the motion, Mr. Brian Coleman.
I'd like to say, before I start, how hurt I am as president of this football club. Hear me out. Hear me out, please. But as president, I was supposed to chair this meeting tonight. But 3 past presidents, or 4 I don't know, had it in their mind that they didn't want me to. Well, my respect for those gentlemen has gone down the drain. I've been a member of this footy club for 30 years. It's my team too. There are people in this room that are jeering at the moment that have never seen Hawthorn through the hard times. There are kids here who have been spoilt. If you do not shut up, Richard.
Can we please just hear out the speakers and save the jeering for the end?
I would expect all Hawthorn supporters here tonight to understand that with only 9,500 adult members and playing at Waverley, where our gate receipts and corporate sponsorship is going down, with the salary cap increasing each year, where it was a manageable 300,000 3 years ago, it'll be 1.5 next year. That hole is getting too big. Too big. Next year we won't be able to pay our players the same increase. And that is heading down the same path as Fitzroy. I know this is hard to take, but if you take Essendon, before we start, Essendon Footy Club are 1.6 million in front of Hawthorn. Interstate clubs are 2 to 3 million in front of Hawthorn. And that's only on gate receipts and membership. The AFL national competition is a new ball game now. There's 5 interstate finals. 5 interstate finals. There's 3 interstate clubs with the best under 23 sides in the competition. How can we compete with them? Without Dunstall, without Langford, without Collins, you've got to have rocks in your head. I'll tell you how we compete with them. We merge with Melbourne. We become a unity that'll give us strength on and off the field. We'll be able to match every chequebook there is. If they come hunting for Crawford, if they come hunting for Harford, Holland, Graham or Chick or Rawlings, we'll be able to match their chequebook and we'll be a strong unity. And I tell you what, we'll be a strong club immediately. We won't have to wait years and years. I asked you, would you sooner play at Waverley or the MCG? Tell you what, we'll have 10 home games at Waverley, which means we'd have 13 games each year for the next 3 years, guaranteed. Everything will remain at Glenferrie. Everything's at Glenferrie. We've got guaranteed sponsorship of 1.5. The income from our social clubs will be 1.5. Corporate sponsors at the MCG will be out of your mind. We will be a strong, powerful club. So I ask you, please, vote with your head and not your hearts, please.
Well, that's the scene at the Camberwell Civic Centre. It's a bit hard to know what to say, but very sadly to see a person who obviously, as Brian Coleman said, has been there through the good and the bad times.
Yes.
And I mean, it was sad to watch that. It was almost painful.
Sometimes you wonder what tonight's meeting is about. I mean, obviously there's got to be a vote, that's fine, but I don't think there's anything going to be said at the meeting tonight that hasn't been covered ad nauseum over the last month or so. So, in a way, it's just a forum for a lot of emotional people to get there in very big numbers.
And we can go straight back. Ian Dicker, who I'm told could become the chairman of the Hawthorn Football Club if the merger doesn't go through. He's heading up the opposition in the business sense, and he's about to speak to obviously what will be a supportive crowd. So let's go back.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd first of all like to oppose the motion to merge. And secondly, Brian, I would like to correct something that you said. It was not the past presidents who suggested that you not be the chairman. It was said there would be a motion from the floor. You are incorrect in judging them that way. I would also like to, before I get into the main part, in response to what you said, Brian, to say that it is just unreasonable to say that we could not pay the players next year. That is just not right. We will pay the players to the full extent of the salary cap and whatever the AFL is allowing us to pay over. And for any suggestion that we would not pay the players next year is just not right. As a businessman, I needed some inspiration to get off my backside and come and vote against the merger. And I had two sources of inspiration. The first was my father-in-law, Harry Pill, who was my great teacher, my great father-in-law, and I know his strength has been a great asset to me in the last 3 weeks. The second person some of you will know, his name is Robert Risson. And in the 50s and the 60s, Melbourne was going to lose its trams. There was a big move to get buses. What it's got to do with football is that Robert Risson single-handedly started to fight to keep the trams. And the fellow who's keeping Hawthorn is Robert Risson, and that's Don Scott. Now as a businessman, despite the difficult times the board have had in the last couple of years, when I left Raymond Vida's office 2.5 weeks ago, the words that we had $1.4 million net assets as our base for the club assured me that we had the basic financial strength to continue to build from here. When you compare that with the now defunct Fitzroy at minus 2.2 million, Sydney with minus 1 million, St Kilda with minus 0.6 of a million, the Bears with minus 0.4, Richmond with 200,000, Footscray with 300,000, Melbourne with 700,000, you will see that with a base of $1.4 million of net assets, we've got a good foundation for the future.
Well, Ian Dicker speaking to the assembled multitude at the Camberwell Civic Centre at the moment. He incidentally led up the original Melbourne bid for the 1996 Olympic Games, the bid that ultimately was unsuccessful in Tokyo in 1990, and he was the chief executive of that operation for 5 months before standing down. He is a director of a number of companies, formerly managing director of the large company which has grown larger in recent years for some of the wrong reasons, and I speak of Ansell. Now we're going back to Melbourne in just a moment, to the Dallas Brooks Hall, where on the scene is Rob Gaylard. The meeting, we were told, was originally delayed for half an hour and then for another half hour. And in fact we can go to Ian Ridley, who is on the stage at the Dallas Brooks Hall, the chairman of the Melbourne Football Club. Well, Ian Ridley's on the stage at the Dallas Brooks Hall, but obviously things are hastening rather slowly there. We'll go back to Hawthorn shortly at the Camberwell Civic Centre, but what a tough night it is. I mean, it must have been painful enough for the likes of Ian Ridley and Brian Dixon. They played alongside each other in 4 premierships, and yet they've been tangling publicly over this in no uncertain terms, but tonight it gets really serious and dirty.
I think these guys will be starting to appreciate how Nick Collum probably felt back in 1989 when he was the Footscray president who recommended the Fitzroy Bulldogs. I mean, you're just on a no-win situation. Even if the thing gets up now, I mean, these images are going to linger a long time, and all those blokes' careers will be not darkened, but they will have this hanging over them, I suppose.
And someone said it was a soft option, and I think they always knew it was a hard option. I mean, the boards took the view that they had to, in their belief on the facts they knew, but I don't think it was ever a soft option. I don't think they may have envisaged this kind of night, but I think they always knew it was going to be tough.
You know what amazes me about it? If Melbourne are up front about everything, I mean, the $3 million in assets, the backing of Gutnick and certainly associates of Gutnick, I mean, they're never going to let anything fall away. Why would Melbourne be looking at a merger when you consider they'd be in a better position than 5 or 6 other clubs?
Good question, Dux.
They might be asking themselves that question tonight as they look from the stage out onto the floor of the Dallas Brooks Hall. We're going back to the Hawthorn meeting in Camberwell. A pro-merger speaker on the stage. Lee, can you tell us who that is?
George Lawson, who has been president of the social club and one of the very senior management at the Bank of Melbourne.
Drive enough cash to play the players. You will see from the top line of that overhead is the league dividend. The bottom line is what we have to pay the players right through to the year 2000. There's a big deficiency. There's a 2.6 million deficiency. Membership. Now just listen to this, please. Adult membership has been falling backwards. I'm here tonight to tell you fact. The average income per member for this football club is $60 per year. Because there are children members as well, darling. By the year 2000, if that membership cannot increase, those numbers cannot increase, expect as a member to have to pay $300 by the year 2000. Now, Don has said that there are 21,000 waiting members out there. He puts in his business plan that we're going to increase income through membership by 400,000. Don, you're going to have to get 6,660 new members, and that's an increase of 54%. A club struggling on the field will not encourage membership. Sponsorship. Can I talk about sponsorship just for a moment? We're talking about this club's sponsorship in 92, 700, 94, 800,000, in 96, 725,000. It's an extremely difficult exercise raising sponsorship money. Get off your ass and do something, darling. Get off your ass and do something. Now, Don tells us that he'll get $1.375 million in 1997. Let me tell you that the major sponsor of this club at the moment, that sponsorship of $620,000 is at risk. That overhead tells you where the difference between the salary cap and the league dividend, where it's going. let's look at the merged club. Net assets of 10 million, no debt, net profit of 1.4 million, 3 million in cash, financially viable, able to compete, MCG, Linda Crescent.
Well, pictures such as the financial statement falling off the whiteboard, a little impromptu, but such is the nature of live television, and they are dramatic pictures indeed. We're going back to Melbourne shortly, and I don't think there'll be any less dramatic there. Now, it looks like another anti-merger speaker is getting up because the mood of hostility has turned to one of support. Ron Cook, former president, is on the stage.
Thank you. I've only got 5 minutes and I want to talk about this great club. You come up here if you want to talk. We've got a bit of quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously it's a hard decision for me to come up here tonight and have to try and talk about saving a great club. It's when you've been a lad around the place and be brought up by some wonderful people that have worked their butt off to make this a fine sporting body. I get very, very offended when people that weren't around when some decisions and tough decisions were made by fine people. I've always considered myself a product of the Hawthorn Football Club and been very proud of it. But I do take offence, and I mean offence, when it's made out that years ago, well, that was too long ago, you wouldn't know. Now, what I want to tell you what happened about this club, there are some of them in heaven today, looking down, the Max Elmers, the Arthur Dunnings, the Bluey Kitsons, fellas, Bobby Yarman, a lot of people that have done a lot who would have a fit if they saw what was happening. People talking about the social club. Well, let me tell you about the social club. None of these people were here when this happened. In 1961, we won our first premiership. We didn't have any money. Hold on. We decided as a board or a committee, and it was in those days under the chairmanship of Sandy Ferguson, that we should bid for the house across the road for £7,000. We went and bid £7,050, which we didn't have, and bought the property. The board was so tough in those days in making sure that we didn't lose money. There was quite a division in the committee as spending £50 more and it could bankrupt us. But the great thing about the Hawthorn people in those days, whatever our blues were inside, when we shut the door and walked outside, they were 100% the judgment. I sat on the board as a 22-year-old. I'm getting aged now. I'm the younger of the two blokes that I respect greatly, in Sandy Ferguson and Phil Ryan, who followed Sandy. And the two great things that I've tried to do in my life as best I can, that I learnt from these fine people, were that you always honoured a promise, and I don't know of one promise in my 30-odd years at the club that was never honoured, even though it may have been a bad decision. It was a great way to do the right thing in life. But above all, and I mean above all, the one thing that we never did was spend what we didn't have. I haven't got long. 7 weeks ago tonight, when we were invited by the board to be told, amongst about another 30 people, that the board had decided to investigate merging with Melbourne. On that night, we were advised that the club had not shown losses of $1.5 million between 1990 and 93 in our accounts, and they're still not shown. That's the problem. It was cheating the books. I must congratulate Don Scott. We never spoke for 15 years, Scotty. You've done the best job I've ever seen a man do around our club. Ian Dicker, if it's the wish of this board, that if they get beaten tonight, that they will resign. Your new president will be Indica. I believe that we have got problems to say we're going to have to work our butt off. In 1966, I'll leave you with this, we finished on the bottom, we finished on the bottom of the ladder in 1995. The draw came out and it was Collingwood at Collingwood, a nice easy one first up, who were runners-up to St Kilda in the previous year's grand final. We put 6 first-year players in the side that day, got beat by a few goals. Don Scott played his first games in the seconds with Terry Gay, and the Collingwood Football Club sold more tickets and made more money outside the ground than we did for the whole season. That's if you're talking about what things have changed. We still won 8 premierships since then. Thank you.
Well, that's former President Ron Cook speaking against the merger as far as Hawthorn is concerned at the Camberwell Civic Centre. We're about to go back to the Dallas Brooks Hall, where there also has been pandemonium. Joseph Gutnick apparently left the meeting, but this is him returning now.
We have to discuss that with the Melbourne Football Club board.
Yes, I hear you're told to have some time back. This meeting place was far too small.
We did.
Whatever's happening now is probably in your favour, the way things are happening.
Well, it's chaos, and it's been chaos organised by the Melbourne Football Club board. Well, of course, it's their meeting. They've organised it.
I've had to apologise to people like Oakley. I've been barred from meetings at the AFL Commission by Collins last year, and I can produce the facts. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I can produce facts. Last year I tried to get the Victorian Football Council off the ground to try and save Victorian clubs. Firstly, having said that, in relation to that, I haven't got much time. But to be a successful football club, any good administration must provide 3 things: money, players, and a coaching staff that can get the best out of them. But it is money and players that we are not on a level playing footing with the interstate clubs. There are only 2 states that provide sufficient players for the number of clubs they have in the AFL. That is Western Australia and South Australia. New South Wales doesn't produce enough players. Queensland doesn't produce enough players. Victoria does not produce enough players for 10 viable competitive sides. We only produce 49% of the players in the competition, and we had 69% of the teams. There was a 20% shortfall. Sure, what Ron Cook said was good, but that was a false level back in the 80s. We got every player out of Victoria, and we could go interstate and get the Germans, get the Buccaneers, but we cannot do that now. Understand these facts, what we're talking about. Why did the Ben Allens, why did the Germans, why did the Robrams, why did Gals leave the state? If we had those players here, we would be a viable, competitive side. Dunstall was offered $2 million to go home for 10 years, whether he played or not. How much do you think it cost Collingwood to keep Buckley? How much do you think it cost St Kilda to keep Lowe? This is the thing. There is a critical link to understand and to appreciate the debate. There is a crucial link between players and money. I can assure you this, if Hawthorn didn't have a good zone after 68, you wouldn't have enjoyed the success that went through it. That is a fact. Ladies and gentlemen, when free agency comes in, and I was associated when I was coaching at that particular time, back in 1972, when the 10-year rule came in, that was a form of free agency. Players left clubs then, they had to take it out. Just leave me with these things. 3 years ago, when it was revealed, 3 years ago when the debt was revealed, people, the President stood down, Raymond Vida, Frank Buckle, Graham Knott, you people elected them to do a job for you. They've been in power for 3 years. They are telling you the situation. You people want to shoot the messenger. Since 1992, you've had 3 presidents, 4 new blokes on the committee. You changed your chief executive, 4 new members on the board. You've had 3 coaches. You sacked your recruiting officers. It's like changing the chairs on the Titanic. We're in quicksand. We are trying to do and tell you the best option for this club here.
Three-time premiership coach Alan Jeans on the stage at the Camberwell Civic Centre. I don't know whether live television sport or television anything comes any more dramatic than that. At the Dallas Brooks Hall, the Melbourne meeting is still stalled. Apparently the Melbourne board wanted to call the meeting off, but the Demon Alternative wants to proceed with the meeting. We're going back though to the Hawthorn meeting. Don Scott about to speak against the merger.
When we started 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had an aim, and that was to raise money. Tonight, we have $900,000 in the bank. We have $20,000 in pledges. I said at the rally that I want you to vote rationally, not emotionally, because this is also a rational decision you've got to make. I also said that we would advise you. I'm now telling you the club is viable. The other thing I can't tell you, and I'd like to talk to the pro-merger group, when we talk tonight, and we're in house here, it is them against us. But when we walk out of this room, it is we. Do you understand? We. This has been a hard-fought campaign. It's been very, very hard. There's been a lot of dirty tricks along the way, and we've done it our share too, so don't worry about us. But one thing that's coming through is the guilt factor. And we have had people now coming forward and just telling us what is actually happening as far as what we call the opposition. I know the jumper is a problem with you people because the telemarketing that Hawthorn has done has suggested that. The other problem is they have loss of Hawthorn name. The third one, and I don't want you to jeer or cheer or whatever, now be quiet please, is the new board of the merged club is flawed by including present Hawthorn board members. They're the three, now just hang on please, they're the three things that have come through, okay? Now, in this thing that we've conducted, I haven't had much compassion for this mob here. Just let me finish. But I really did, and it really got up my goat to read the paper last Thursday, the same thing that inspired me to get off my arse when I knew that we're going to merge, when Brian Coleman went to bloody Ian Ridley and asked about the name. Can you just be quiet? We've only got 5 minutes. I rang Coley up. I said, Coley, you go to bloody Ian Ridley and you tell him to call it the Hawthorn Demons. Because we've got the assets, we've got everything. And we've now got the money and we've got a plan to go forward. Go and put it to him, the arrogant little bastard. And we're talking here as we, not them against us. It is we. You read in the paper, Ian Ridley, a couple of them wanted to change the name, but it just isn't possible. That's not a true merge. And he also went on to say, that is how it is. That is how it is. Nobody is told that is how it is. It's a split fair and square. We've got Melbourne, you've got Hawks. Where's Hawthorn's name? You're probably not privy to what went out from Melbourne. Let me just read you a couple of little things. I'm talking to the pro-mergers here. Here it is. History says that we may be the Melbourne Fuchsias, the Melbourne Redlegs, the Melbourne Demons, maybe the Melbourne Hawks. So we're entering into a new phase of history. They don't care what they call themselves as long as it's Melbourne. The new entity will be Glenferrie Oval at no cost to the MFC, Melbourne Football Club, as it has the ground exclusively. No begging the cricket people about training times. The ground will be ours. And with the tremendous player facilities, this is the assets that we've got, including a spa, gymnasium, recently refurbished administration offices, ample car park, plus social club, plus gaming venue. The club will be the envy of the AFL. People, I know that this Guernsey, there's ours. I mean, this is not the greatest fashion statement around, brown and gold. But whether you like it or not, they're our colours. Hang on. I'm talking to the pro-mergers here because we're talking as we, okay? Not talking about I against us. There's Melbourne, it used to be pale blue. They changed it to navy blue. Just have a look at Hawthorn. Now this is after a couple of abridged versions. This is what they finally came up with. You take off, where's the brown? You take off a little bit of gold. have you got? A Velcro Hawk and a Melbourne Guernsey.
Well, Don Scott in scintillating form at the Camberwell Civic Centre. He has always had a flair for the theatrical, Lee. I remember him pouring the water over his head after he kicked that goal at the Jollymont end in the 78 grand final. I don't know whether he was ever better than that, though.
No, I gave Alan Jones a 9 and I think Scotty a 9.5. That was just fantastic. That little Velcro props was just magnificent.
He might have just stitched up the special comments role in the grand final telecast. So he goes a fine performance.
He certainly had them eating out of his hands, didn't he? But the point is, we've heard all that. But tonight, that was all words. It's really nothing to do with the issue. I mean, the issue is purely a financial one. Can they or can't they? I'm uncertain of it. As I say, I accepted what the board told me. And it may be that if this doesn't get through, a new Hawthorn board will have the chance to see if they can do anything.
Nonetheless, I mean, we questioned earlier whether there was any point in this going ahead, and they're chanting for Don Scott at the moment. But, I mean, the coming together of a large group of people is a very powerful statement, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, look, I mean, Footscray, you know, I keep going back to Footscray 89, but, I mean, everyone said when Peter Gordon first emerged there, how are they going to get the wherewithal and the resources or whatever? Well, they did. They got a good board together. They had a great first up season. They were in the finals 2 years later.
And eventually, Peter Gordon is exploring mergers.
That is true, but it's another 7 years down the track, and who knows what can happen in those 7 years, particularly, and we keep making this point, when the new TV contract comes in at the end of 98, there's no reason why the distributions to clubs can't go up, you know, several times over.
Well, is it possible too that the AFL, if it sees enough of this going on, enough of the pain and anger, particularly from clubs that were a bit stronger than Footscray were in 1989, that it might actually have to start rethinking its philosophy?
Gee, they've had enough examples, though, haven't they? I think the philosophy, frankly, is just too cast in stone. I honestly don't think some of the AFL commissioners comprehend this sort of thing that we're seeing tonight, and I think it shows time and time again.
If they don't comprehend it, they haven't got Optus Vision and Sports AFL.
Well,
you only have to look at it.
We might just have to send them a tape, Tim, because it's pretty. I don't know about everyone out there, but I found that pretty riveting viewing.
It was, yes.
And Yabby, you gave a 9.5 out of 10. Lee, you weren't playing at 89 when he gave his half-time one about the kid who bought the pair of shoes, but is that a sample of what you used to get when he was catching?
Oh, well, I mean, that ability to raise his voice to such a high pitch, you feel like putting your fingers in your ears. He just talks so loudly, and you know, pushes you back against the wall, and he always delivers it with such conviction, which you don't see very public. That's a rare glimpse of Alan Jeans in the public arena.
Now, they're taking questions from the floor at the Camberwell Civic Centre. That's Richard Loveridge, who is chairing the whole thing, but let's hear a question.
Where they think they're going to get this large supporter base from?
Hello? Please, could I get clarification of that? Is it a question to the board?
Sorry, I'll clarify that. With the merged club, you are saying that we're going to have a supporter base of 20,000 plus.
Yes.
And I don't believe that's going to happen.
Okay.
So I'd like to know.
Brian Coleman.
I've never said 20,000. I said initially we would get 17,000. And the success that we would have in the first year, which would have been immediate, we would then expect the rest of you people to pop along the year after, or the year after.
Please keep the cheers or jeers to a minimum so as many as possible can get a say. In the middle, please.
In the last 3 weeks, I've received 8 loads of mail, and I've been telemarketed twice. Why did you never try to raise membership as diligently as you tried to denigrate our club?
You all right? We looked at every avenue. I guess in hindsight, I guess in hindsight we didn't have Don Scott or Dermot Brereton doing it, that's all. If we did, and Don Scott wanted to come on the board last year, I wish we had got Don Scott on the board. He might have helped us get the other way. Thank you.
Is there a further microphone, please?
Who said that gutless wonder? Would you stand up, please? Righto. Where's the security bloke?
We'll move to the... Excuse me. At the poll at the back.
Yeah, we've been polled. Okay. Brian, you stated quite often that the AFL is going to give us $6 million, an open slather on the best 44 players, yet according to the explanatory notes that you sent around, absolutely nothing is guaranteed, not even 6 cents, until sometime after we vote on the merger, and it's up to the clubs that actually knock back a lot of the conditions on the Brisbane merger. Why are we being asked to vote before you've got a written guarantee on all the terms and conditions? Or is this another John Elliott stand fiasco?
We have... The AFL have agreed, if clubs merge, that there will be $6 million. The other AFL clubs...
Is it in writing, Brian?
It is in writing. The other AFL clubs have endorsed it.
Where is the document? Why was it in...
And we would have a list of 44 players which we can pick from. We would have to keep that 44 naturally within the salary cap, but we would also be able to trade from it, which put us in a similar situation to the West Coast Eagles, where we could trade off the top and get something from the bottom.
If it's in writing, why was it excluded specifically in the explanatory notes?
Well, we'll leave the Camberwell Civic Centre there. We're going to wrap the program up shortly. We've heard all the speakers at the Hawthorn meeting. It's going to be quite a bit later, I would think, before we actually have an outcome. And who knows, with Melbourne at the Dallas Brooks Hall, that meeting has been stalled. It was due to start at 8 o'clock, and it's an hour and a half of getting nowhere as far as Melbourne is concerned. Rowan?
Just on that last point, why are we talking about playing lists and whatever for the next couple of years? I thought mergers are supposed to be about the long term, about supporter bases, membership. They seem to me to be intent mainly on getting a decent player list for the next 2 years. That's not what it's about, surely.
It's a very short-term objective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's that last question was about this specific merger. I mean, the first question is, do we have to merge? And the second question, unfortunately, they're all tied up at once, aren't they? You should almost get a mandate to go to merge, because that's what we've got to do, and then we investigate a specific merger. But they're all intertwined into the one question at the one time.
We've got to wrap it up. Lee, that'll give you a chance to get to the Camberwell Civic Centre, or do you have another engagement?
I think I might avoid that by a long way.
Have you got another engagement?
I'm talking footy tonight on the
Give us a plug, Lee. Give us a plug.
I hope it's as interesting as our program was tonight, Lee, but I think it might be battling to match what we've seen in the last hour and a half or couple of hours on Football Feedback. Preliminary finals coming up this week. Don't forget about those. Brisbane and North Melbourne in the afternoon, Essendon and Sydney at night. For now, good night.
Have you heard the news? The off-season's been cancelled. No summer break. Just straight from the end of season to pre-season.
On Sports AFL, we aren't taking a break for the off-season. Instead, we'll keep you up to date with footy news, bring you all the club best and fairest, the draft and player movements, plus analysis of how your team went during the year.
There's talk shows, interviews, replays of the best matches. Phew. Give me a finals game anytime.
sit up and take an interest by kick-starting your weekend with some gossip. Join Tanya Breyer as she tracks down the stars.
Let's play.
The show with its finger on the pulse.
What a party!
What's going down in the world of showbiz? All the latest in news, interviews, and revealing secrets.
I have a theory for the ugly woman.
So make sure you're in the know by tuning into The Entertainment Show every Saturday, 1:30 and 6:30 on Sky News.
Great talking to you on Sky.
During the most controversial conflict in American history,
I will not be the first American president to lose a war.
a divided country put its faith in one man
After my landslide on the 7th, nobody will say no to me.
and discovered his personal agenda.
B-52s, Henry. B-52s. We'll bomb the bastards into submission.
Bo Bridges, Ron Silver.
I will not be bound by political objectives.
Kissinger and Nixon, September 15th on TMN.